Hey, what's up everyone, Danny here. For this video, I brought together other PC content creators to share the most embarrassing mistakes we've made when it comes to PCs. This is meant to be a fun, lighthearted video, and hopefully it helps you build confidence in your own skills no matter where you're at. We were all beginners at one point in time, and some of us have probably made bigger mistakes in the past than you will ever make, so don't worry about it. But without further ado, here are our biggest PC fails. Hope you all enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Nerd on a Budget channel, where I, Scattervolt, will tell you my most memorable PC building fail. But real quick, if you guys don't know me, I'm Mark, head of the Scattervolt channel, and I've been doing videos related around PC gaming tech for quite a while. Which, as a fellow tech YouTuber, I want to give thanks to Nerd on a Budget for letting me on his channel and allowing me to share my most silly PC building mistake. It all begins with this beauty right behind me, which a while ago, I was set on producing a brand new gaming PC guide on my channel. However, upon initially building this PC, it didn't work. And then it didn't work again. And then it didn't work again. And then it didn't work again. And then it finally worked. So the problem was that I replaced every component in the system, that being the power supply, motherboard, processor, hard drive, and even the case, but I never replaced the RAM. I always thought a new computer could post with no RAM, so I always assumed my RAM worked, but it was actually faulty all along. And when I replaced it with newer RAM, it finally worked. The bottom line is, 1, be wary of D-Way RAM, it'll catch you, and 2, you always need to have RAM inserted in your motherboard when testing any brand new system.
So let's take you back to about 2004, 2005. Now, I've been a technician for a long time, but at that point in time, I was kind of on a downswing where I was sort of off of it and I wasn't really doing it on the side anymore. So I was a little bit behind on hardware news. There was a game coming out that I really wanted to play, so I felt that it was time to actually upgrade my main rig, and so I went to the streets down to College and Spadina in Toronto, which is where all the tech stores were at the time. On that particular day, I had everything else accounted for aside from the motherboard, CPU, and graphics card. First store I went to had the motherboard and CPU I had in mind, so I bought them straight away with the intention of bundling in a graphics card with it, but when they brought the card, they recommended up to the counter and said, this is the new hotness that all the kids are using today. It said PCI Express on the front, and I was of course deterred. AGP standard had been the standard for a couple of years now, still relatively new, and I couldn't believe that this computer store that was otherwise reputable would be trying to sell me a PCI graphics card. So I moved on to store number 2 and encountered the exact same result. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is going on here? What kind of a technological twilight zone am I in? So I went to the third store, and once again, the salesperson recommended me a graphics card, PCI Express written on the front of the box, and this time, finally, I vocalized my frustration. You are the third person to recommend a PCI graphics card to me when AGP graphics cards are ubiquitous and every motherboard supports them. And he said, out of curiosity, which motherboard do you have? So of course, I took off my backpack, took out the motherboard box, opened the motherboard box, took the motherboard out of the anti-static sleeve and said, look, see right here, AG, what the fuck is that? And that, of course, was the day that I made a high and mighty ass of myself and first learned about the PCI Express standard. In front of a salesman, of course, that not only A, had more knowledge than I did at the time, but B, had the decency to not wear sweatpants to work.
Hello Noab fans, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And the worst experience that I've had when it comes to broken PC parts would be when I was heading back from America to Japan and I was catching a flight. And I put my 980 Ti in the suitcase, and I didn't package it that well. I only put it in some clothes. And then when I got back to Japan, I went to boot my computer up with the 980 Ti in there, and it was completely dead. I ended up putting another graphics card in and confirming that it was the 980 Ti that died. And so with that, I was lucky enough to get it replaced under warranty. And so it actually didn't end up costing me anything in the end, but it could have costed me a lot, especially if it was a second-hand graphics card with no warranty. And the ironic thing was that I did get a better graphics card sent in replacement. This was the Inno3D. I had a reference card, and then I got sent a full Hercules like X4. So that was pretty cool. That came out of that. So I guess the moral of the story is maybe break your PC parts.
Hello everyone, my name is Matt from Tech by Matt, and my biggest PC building fail has to be the time when I killed a motherboard when trying to overclock. So this happened a few years back when I was trying to overclock an i5 750 on an LGA 1156 motherboard. Now the cool thing about older Intel motherboards is even the lower end versions gave you the ability to overclock. I was using an H55 board, which was entry level compared to the P55 boards that were meant for overclocking, so I decided I wanted to try to give my CPU a light overclock. I headed over to YouTube, typed in how to overclock i5 750, and began following the tutorial, bumping up my CPU by about 100 MHz each time. So after about 400 or 500 MHz increase, I said to heck with it and bumped the CPU up to 4 GHz for some reason. It actually booted into Windows just fine, and I ran Prime 95 to stress test it. So I set Prime 95 and walked away for about 20 minutes. When I came back, the screen was blank and the computer would not turn on. What happened was the overclock was way too high and Prime 95 overdrove the system and actually ended up frying the board. I was kind of in denial that the motherboard was fried. I thought it was the cheap power supply I had used, so I actually even ordered a new power supply just to find that that didn't work either, and to increase my confirmed suspicion that my motherboard was fried. So yeah, that's my story. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you, Danny, for having me on. Peace.
My biggest PC failure is when I fried my hardware by plugging things in incorrectly. At the time, I had an AMD Phenom 2 965 Black Edition and a Radeon HD 6870, which puts the story around 2010, 2011, around that time frame, and I was still quite the noob when it came to PCs. I roughly knew how to assemble a computer so I could play the latest games, but that was about it. What I did was I accidentally plugged in the floppy drive power cable into a fan header on my motherboard. I didn't think twice about it because for the most part you can eyeball what hardware fits where, and what I mean by this is that, you know, the CPU can only really fit into the CPU socket, the RAM can only fit into the RAM slots, the 24 pin connector can only go into the motherboard, so you kind of get the point, right? Well, the motherboard PWM fan header takes a 4-pin connector, and the floppy drive power connector also happens to be a 4-pin connector that fits into it. So I plug it in completely not paying attention and thinking I knew exactly what I was doing. And when I turn my computer on, I hear this very loud pop, similar to like a balloon popping or a gunshot, and my computer turns on with the GPU fan ramped up to 100% speed, and there's no image on the monitor. What I ended up doing was frying both my motherboard and graphics card that day, a very expensive mistake. But the moral of the story is, don't plug things in just because they happen to fit. Know exactly what you're plugging in before doing so, and if you're unsure or have questions, just pause and ask someone for help.
Yo, what's up guys, Joe here. So this is a story about the first ever GPU I bought and how it died. So I went over to my cousin's house and he was playing the newly released Call of Duty World at War. I really wanted the game at the time, and he pretty much told me, yeah, I got it for free. I'm like, you got it for free? What? How? It was a torrented version. I didn't know that at the time. He had burned the game on 2 discs. He gave it to me and he gave me instructions on how to do it. I went home, I followed the instructions, I installed Call of Duty World at War on my PC for free. I was playing it, but it was a really unplayable experience. I'm pretty sure I wasn't even getting 20 FPS. So I went down on my local Fry's Electronics. I bought any GPU I saw that was within my price range. It was a 9800 GT. I took it home, plugged it in, and it worked. But just here's the catch. It required a 6-pin power cable, which I didn't even know about. And I also didn't install the driver, so I definitely wasn't getting my money's worth. But the GPU worked, and it's really weird because nowadays if you try to do that with modern GPUs, you won't even get a video signal. You gotta make sure you power them up. But this one worked. It worked for a while, for a good amount of time, and then eventually fan stopped spinning, no more video signal, it died. Took it down on my local Fry's Electronics and I returned it. They accepted the return, great. But I wasn't giving up, I still wanted to play PC games. So I went down there, I talked to the guys, they're like, yeah, you need a 6-pin power cable. I'm like, oh. So the Fry's employee then walked me over to the GPU section and he gave me the same GPU, the 9800 GT, but this was the Eco version, which means it wasn't clocked as high, so it didn't need as much power, so it didn't need a 6-pin power cable. So I bought that, took it home, plugged it into my PC, was excited, and it ran great. I don't know how much FPS I got. I didn't even know how to monitor FPS at the time. I'd like to think it was at least 30 FPS, but nonetheless it was a lot better than no GPU. But yeah guys, the moral of the story would be just do your research before picking out your components. There's so many great tools now on YouTube. There's so many great guide videos teaching you how to build the PC, install the drivers, install games from start to finish, like the ones on my channel. Shameless plug. But yep, that pretty much wraps up my story. Thank you Danny for having me on the channel, man. Peace.
Hello, my name is Kaitlyn and my channel is Kaitlyn V3 and I recently made this computer. This is my first hardline water-cooled computer and I learned a lot of things from it. In fact, I learned so many things that I made a top 10 lessons learned of my first water cooling experience that you can find on my channel. But the number one thing that I learned, and it still blows my mind that I did this because it's so ridiculous, is that when you are bending hardline tubing, in my case I was using PETG, you have to leave a few centimeters of straight tube in order for the fitting to fit flushly on the tube. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of making a bend and then cutting the straight tube right up into the bend. It doesn't work like that because as soon as you cut off all that straight tube, you're going to get this curve and the fitting is not going to fit on it. It just doesn't fit on a curve. Unfortunately, I tried very hard to get my fittings to go on even though they were not flush, and then I put all of my faith into the trusty O-rings to keep the water from escaping. However, I met a different fate, and then as soon as I turned the pump on, everything leaked. And I had to redo every single bend. Thank you so much, Danny, for putting together this video, and thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye!
Welcome everyone, my name is Lee from comptv, and if you don't know me, I actually make budget tech videos just like Danny does. Yes, and I am wearing his color on purpose. And my most embarrassing PC building mistake actually happened pretty recently. I was building a dual Xeon system with a server motherboard, which I'd never touched either of those things before in the past, and after I was done installing the operating system, it was going to reboot, and after the shutdown, which is supposed to boot back into Windows, it wouldn't turn back on. And so at this point I had thought that maybe I had done something wrong, so I kept trying to boot it and boot it and boot it, and I realized that the system must have been dead, right? The motherboard was dead. I mean, that was the only explanation. Well, it turns out that if you actually take the time to read the manuals that come with the motherboards, you would see that there are specific instructions for solving these problems, and I found that I was trying to bridge the wrong connection on the motherboard to boot it each and every time. I just completely got lucky. Even in the video where I did this build, which I'll show a clip here, I just happened to hit the power button at the time that the server motherboard started itself up. Check out this clip of Gladiator starting up. Seems legit, right? Well, it turns out that server motherboards actually have a feature that automatically triggers a power on as soon as the board receives power from the wall. Super embarrassing, and again, the moral of the story is read the manual. A huge thanks to Danny for letting me in on this collaboration, and maybe see you on my channel.
Hey, what is up guys? We are the Toasty Bros, and special thanks to Danny for having us on this collaboration. Today we're going to be bringing you our biggest blunder when building a PC, and it's kind of embarrassing, but we're going to talk about it.
Okay, so Matt and I were doing a really cool custom PC about a year ago. It was inside of a toaster oven. So, you know, being the Toasty Bros, toaster oven, it just kind of went together. So we're putting the motherboard onto this metal tray, right? Because, you know, the toaster oven has like the little rack there. So we go to put the motherboard straight on that metal rack. You know, we spent hours putting everything together, and, you know, metal rack with all of the contacts just laying on it, you know. We just keep turning it on, and we're like, why does it keep turning on for like 2 seconds and then turning back off?
But really, that's something that we can translate to telling you all, we're not perfect with our builds, especially with custom stuff, and especially if you're building your first PC, you're not gonna be always perfect with it, but it's not that scary.
Most of you aren't gonna be building stuff inside a toaster oven, so in your case, don't forget to have those brass risers. Those will make it to where you're not gonna short circuit things on the board. All in all though, just be careful.
And if you want to see more custom builds like that one and that are actually a little bit more successful, definitely check out our channel down below. See you guys there.
What's going on, everyone? It's Ozzie from OzTalksHW, and I've had a lot of computer tech related mistakes, but I think my biggest one was unplugging a CPU fan header from my motherboard while the computer was on. Yeah, I know, it's very careless. I was benchmarking older computer hardware, and at this point I was a few hours into it, so I was pretty tired and careless, as you already know. And so once I was finished with my benchmark run, I was going to tear down the computer. So I unplugged one of the motherboard headers while the computer was still running. Things were still being displayed on screen. Once I unplugged it, everything went black. And you know that feeling where you walk into a classroom and your friend asks, "Are you ready for the test?" And you're like, "What test?" And then your friend's mouth drops, and then your stomach drops, and then it feels like the world is just colliding and collapsing into you. That's kind of how I felt. Granted, this was older technology, so it wasn't anything that was super expensive or irreplaceable, but it definitely made me a more careful PC tech user. So, lessons learned. Whenever you're doing any kind of modifications to your computer, make sure everything is powered off and all external connectors are unplugged. Take as many precautions as you can. Oh, and something as small as a fan header can have a big difference. So yeah, take precautions. They're there for a reason.
Alright, so that's gonna wrap it up for our failures. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And also, be sure to check out everyone that was a part of this collaboration and subscribe to them if you're interested in seeing more of their content. All the links to their channels and social media can be found in the description section. But let me know down in the comments which story you thought was the most embarrassing, the funniest, or the most surprising to hear about. And also, feel free to share your own stories of PC failures in the comments. We would definitely love to read about them. But I want to give a huge thanks to everyone who took part in making this video happen. It was really fun setting it up and compiling. And maybe if this is popular, I can set up another one and bring in some more different people. Let me know if you'd like to see that. But thank you as always for watching. I can't stress enough how much I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you down in the comments, as well as in the next video. Bye.